Hello, Lorraine here today with some cool Christmas bows from the Build a Christmas Bow cut file from Peartree Cutfiles. So I have cut out on plain white cardstock, it's textured. The file, you can just about see the shapes there on the white on white. I have added a couple more the bow centres and bow pieces to layer up. So I'm adding gesso, letting it dry. As soon as it's dry, peeling that away. So you can see behind there the different elements. So the first bow that I'll be making is this lovely holly bow. So I've got the pieces there, the holly shape, the smaller circular bow that looks like swimming goggles, and that middle rectangle which is the bow centre. Just use repositional glue to add them down onto my silicone mat, and adding there some different watercolours. Got different greens I've mixed to add a variegated look to that holly. The darker I'm adding as if they're veins on the holly leaf, and just blending them in so you can't see there's such definite lines, but just a shadow for that different texture really. Makes it a bit more 3D. So adding a nice bright red there to that centre of that bow. Let's mix a couple of reds together, and then this Lindy's Magical Powders in Rudolph's Nose. Great name, and it's super sparkly. So it's got some different pigments in there, so it adds a little bit of black, and I think I also found a little bit of navy in there. But when they were activated with the water, they really ended up lovely. It dries with a lovely sparkle on it. Put it there in the centre of the bow as well. So adding onto the holly part some of this Shimmer's powder. Again, if not Shimmer's powder, sorry, it's a Nouveau powder. So if you add, I think it's jade green, add a little bit of water, it makes it activate. So over the red, once dry, I'm putting on some Nouveau glitter paste. Again, super duper sparkly there. It's going to be a really sparkly, glamorous bow. So I leave them to dry. They dry really quick. Then come back and shape them. So just bending the holly where it would shape naturally. The bow you just double over, meets in the middle. You can just see there where the two pieces meet on the back. Adding that centerpiece on top and then over the bottom piece as well, so it brings them all together. Snipping that off, bit of red tape, keeps them nice and together. A little bit of glossy accents in the centre there, and 3 little pom-poms. That's actually trimmed off a mini pom-pom trim, but you could use just little pom-poms just in the middle there, or some little beads, just to add those centre berries to the holly. They're a bit tricky to stick down, so I actually stood a little glue bottle on top of it because they kept sticking back onto my fingers. They're really pleased with that. Just shaping the bow pieces with the end of a paintbrush there, really glimmery, love it. So the next one I made was this lovely deer. So you can see which pieces I'm using off here. Those little deer antlers. They're great fun because they can be a woodland sort of natural deer, or you can make them into a Rudolph. So I'm taking away just that outer line and using the centre. And it comes away really nice and easy. Still together with a real thin piece of card there. So again, just sticking with repositional glue to my mat so they keep still while I paint. So I'm thinking there, see the tapping the fingers, I'm thinking what colour I'm going to go for. So I actually decided to use this Vicky Bouton, I think it's Rose Gold was the colour, from a couple of colour kits ago that she's done to coordinate with the range. It's lovely because it is a rich colour, but it's also got that glisten to it without being overly metallic. So a nice warm gold with those pinky rose tinge. So just coating all 3 pieces with that paint. So making sure it goes on nice and thick, straight from the bottle, covers really well. There, you can see them better on the white, they were getting lost on the silicone mat. So I decided to mix up just some cheap watercolours there that I've got in a brown, add a bit of water to it, thin it down a bit, and add that on over the gold. Although it looks like it hides the gold at this point, it actually, when you dab it away a little bit with a tissue, it just leaves traces of that brown, sort of that variegated look really, on top with the gold peeping out underneath. It's really fun adding the paint and the different elements to these bows. It's nice to work on your smaller projects ready to add to gift bags or to tags or to layouts. So there, once they're all dry, I'm just rubbing off the repositional glue. Tiny little bit of red tape. I found that was the best, that narrow red tape for these bows. It's nice and strong, nice and flat. So just fold each end into the middle to create those 2 ears of the bows. Shape them up again with a paintbrush. And there's the ears. I'm thinking, okay, where to position them exactly on the back. A little bit more tape. Hold them nice and firm. Bows with ears, perfect combination for Christmas. So there they are, stuck to the back, nice and firm, just sort of shaping them up. Got that centre to that bow, again that holds the actual main part of the bow as well as the antlers together. So using that narrow red tape. Really simple and quick to do, real fun little thing to do in between perhaps those bigger projects we've all got going on. Shaping them up a little bit. I thought about adding googly eyes to the centre, but I decided on a little rose, which you'll see in the picture at the start. Okay, so moving on here to the Christmas pudding. I think this had to be my favourite of all to paint and to embellish. So you see there which pieces I've used. You've got the circular ones that look like round Harry Potter sunglasses. Then the ones at the top that look a little bit like a fancy bra, really. So I've added the brown, that deep brown, the Christmas pudding colour, to the round pieces. And then I'm adding a shimmery white to the frosting or cream that's on top of the Christmas pudding. Again, that's just a basic set out of the local hobby store. Using that for the centre as well there. Just mixing up a little bit of a lighter brown with white to add over that dark brown. The pudding, again, that's with a glistening colour. Makes it a bit shimmery, like glazed Christmas pudding look. Then mixing up a colour for the red for the bow at the back. So it's kind of like a raspberry red. Actually, it's not too dark. Just sits nicely there in the background. Just adding a couple of coats there. Putting it on quite roughly, so it looks more of a sort of... Okay, so adding some texture here with a polka dot cut stencil, some Vicky Bouton moulding paste. My idea here was to it would look like raisins or candied fruit you have in a traditional Christmas pud. So I want to create that sort of warm, sort of yellowy tones that they would sort of be that candied fruit. So I'm adding a bit of the Nouveau gold drops there. It's not quite right, it's still a bit too white. Adds a bit of shimmer but not colour. So I'm adding in here a bit of the Lindy's Magical Powder in Clam Bake. Giving them a good mix up. It's really good because it comes out perfect tone that I wanted, but it's still got a bit of shimmer because of the crystal drops that I put in beforehand. So just adding that nice and simply through the polka dot file straight over to those Christmas puddings over that brown. Yeah, really happy with how that looks. Just adds that yeah, that exciting sort of new different look to it. More like a Christmas pud. So there they are dry. So I'm really happy with how each of these pieces turned out. The different shimmery of the white, the different tones of the browns with those golden candied fruits on top of the puddings. So just layering that the cream there on the top, just with some glossy accents just to the top edge of that. Hold it in place. Didn't want it to be dimensional, but I didn't want it to be actually stuck straight down, so I just added just to that rim of the top of the pud. So once it was dry, a little bit of the narrow red tape in the middle of those Christmas puddings, then folding in the edges rather than to the centre, which most of the bows had. Only went sort of like about 3/4 of the way in on this, so that some of the bow was the pudding was more seen. So folding them up and round, you can see just adding that red on the bottom. It's a bit like either a nice red tiered plate or, you know, perhaps a nice napkin or bow behind the Christmas pudding, or it was in my head. They're just sticking them all together, nice and firm, with that white strip in the middle to coordinate and hold it all together. If you wanted, you could add even like a tiny little holly embellishment in the middle, would be quite cute. Or shrink down that holly bow from the start of the video. Yeah, just coming in there with some Nouveau crystal drops in that gold again, just to add a bit more dimension and colour pop on those candied fruits on the top. You can see there, really pretty. See why this was my favourite bow of them all in the end. Really pleased how this one came together. So next up is this really fun quirky elf. So yeah, there's the pieces there that you can see on the cut file, just removing them really carefully. So you've got those bow pieces, the piece that goes behind, and here's cute little legs there, which are the elf tights and curled toe boots. So removing the pieces from the inner section of the hat, just really carefully, as well as from the tights to give that stripy effect. It's a really fun one to do, especially if you watch something like the Elf movie or something over Christmas. It'd be great to add to a December album, or to document if you've had a naughty elf in your house. Okay, so I really wanted to bring what sat well for me in terms of what I thought was an elf colour, which was the classic sort of green and yellow with a black belt. You see here I'm trying different greens on both of the circular bow ears as well as that piece at the back, mixing various greens until I get sort of bright, vibrant, I guess, yeah, cross between a bottle green and a lime green really. So I'm adding different tones on that until I'm happy with the shade. Rather than mixing up a colour separate, I added those layers on. It just creates so it didn't look quite so flat. You see there I've also added a bright yellow. It looks more mustardy on that to the tights. I'm just sitting it there on a piece of plain paper, building it up, seeing what it looks like, Actually hand cutting the end of the piece of black remnant cardstock for that middle piece rather than paint it black. So I had a piece floating around on my desk. So I'm just putting the bow together with the double-sided tape again in that red tape. So I stuck the legs onto that bow piece at the back, just in the centre of that. I didn't back the legs at all, I left them that sort of open look. So if it goes onto a layout, that's going to look really cool. That can overlap a photo quite nicely without blocking it out. So there, you just see the layering up. So it's the legs, the bow back section, then the legs, and then the ear bow section. Then I put the black belt around the middle that holds it all together. Perfect complement there. It looks like the elf's belt buckle. Just making those ears nice, ears of the bow sort of curled again. And then ready to position that little hat. So I have a bit of a play here of where I want it positioned. I know I want it sort of on the right hand side, leaning a little bit, but it feels a little bit too plain. So there I am with a little bit of card, just backing that piece in the yellow. I actually added some of the yellow paint, same as the legs, to that little piece. So it was the same sort of tones. Just adding that onto the back. Also helps keep that a lot more solid, not quite so flimsy, the little hat there. Just finishing it off with a little bit of tape on the back. Really happy with how that was looking. This is a super cute one. Yeah, I'm really happy with how that's looking. Just have a little squeeze of all the elements, make sure they're all stuck together. That hat isn't going nowhere. Tilted exactly as I want it. And a tiny little white pom-pom or some pom-pom trim there. I add just onto where a bell or a pom-pom would be on that elf's hat. Sticking that all behind there again, making sure it's nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. Get quite particular the angle of the hat for some reason. Yeah, and it comes and sticking of that pom-pom on. Just use a bit of the Cosmic Shimmer glue. Nice and sticky, holds it in place. Just holding that down till it's really sort of firm, and there we go. Really super duper happy with that. A bit more masking tape just to the back. Really don't want this coming apart. So now we have a really glitzy bow. Nice lilac, simple bow. Just a simple bow shape, double eared. I think they're called ears. Should really find out the technical term for that. But you can see there I've got two of those, a slightly larger, slightly smaller piece, the back bit as well as the middle piece. Just sticking them down onto my silicone mat, just with temporary repositional glue. Keep them nice and firm, ready for that mixed media. So for this, as you can see, it's a really glitzy lilac sparkly bow. So I've also got some texture on there where I've used foiled again by Shimmers. It's like a lovely texture paste in a silvery foil colour. So I'm using a star stencil there from Echo Park, just taping that down so it doesn't move. So I'm doing that on all of the pieces aside from that middle strip that connects the bows together. Making sure it's nice and firmly through that stencil. So it leaves a lovely, literally like a foil colour. I've had that for a couple or so years now, and it still keeps going strong, and it's yeah, still lovely paste. It's not dried out at all. Okay, so take that off carefully, let them dry for a moment. So the silver and white looks great together if you wanted to leave it like that. I mean, that would be really pretty, really striking, but I decided I wanted to add like a pinky purpley colour, make this a really pretty icy cold looking bow. So I'm just painting a thin watercolour over the top of that in the pinks and the lilacs that you'll see. I use a couple of different tones. Again, just to give it, you know, that look of not just one flat colour. And it's great because the silver foiled, again, embossed part still shines through really lovely. You can still see it's silver, but it's got like a sheen of that colour on top as well. It really adds a gorgeous effect. I was really pleased how this came together. This would be great added to a nice bottle of Prosecco or champagne to give a loved one for Christmas. So there we go. That's all the pieces, all drying there on the white card. All ready to put together. Really simple, really quick, this one. So again, add in that narrow red tape, keep it nice and strong together. This is actually quite a thick structured bow when it's all together because of the layer of glitter I add on at the end. So that the red tape really did keep it holding strong. So really simple, you're just doubling up those bows. As the previous bows have only had one set of this, whereas this is a doubled one, so slightly bigger at the bottom, then the next one up, slightly smaller. So making them all nice and neat. Just cutting little edges off there of the tape. So add into the centre of the top and the bottom pieces there to keep it nice and in place. So I cut the tails actually in half because I decided that I'd like to see more of that you know, lovely finish on them. So I cut them in half and then I'm going to point them down slightly, or like a reversed V. It'll all make sense when you see how I stick them on, really. So they're both just angled, that reversed V shape. Again, each piece, so I've just cut that in half, and each piece just sticks on the back, like that. So I just positioned it like that, stuck the bow on top, it's got the tape on. I'm really happy with the shape of that. You can really see those bow tails a lot more than if it had been kept one piece behind. It's a really versatile cut file. In different layers you can use with different ones, decorate with different colours. There, it's really pretty, but I decided no, we need more shimmer, so I'm using this Nuvo glitter paste here. Did use that earlier on the holly, but I'm adding quite a thick layer here, just with a paintbrush on the bow once it was constructed. So adding it on each piece that I can see. You can't really see how it shows up the glimmer on this, but on the close-up photo of this bow prior to this section of the video you can really see how that glimmers. So I am showing them all off. Really enjoyed making these and hope you do too.